This might be the most crucial video I make on this channel, mainly because I hold so much value in knowing your scales very well. I think it's a skill that I always lean on when making up renditions of songs, when I'm improvising with bands, when accompanying people, when there's a gap in the song where there's no vocal melody and you need to come up with something to do. I jump to scales, and it's only because I know them so well that I'm able to effortlessly play them, and it just looks like I'm improvising some mad notes just because I'm playing the notes of the scale of the key that I'm in. Not necessarily in the order of the scale, but just knowing the notes of that scale and being able to jump around those notes with the right or left hand is so powerful to have that ability when you're learning music, learning piano. So I would argue this is such a crucial thing to know, and I'm gonna go through pretty simply now on how I would go about doing that basically from scratch. And I want to show you the best ways to practice scales, the best methods to know. This will not only make you familiar with all of the notes in each key that you're playing, but it will develop your ability to match your left hand playing up to a near level as your right hand. For me, I don't see my left hand ever being on the same level as my right hand, but it's very important. The skill of being able to separate these two and have the left hand think and do stuff independently from the right hand is crucial in all pieces you're going to play. These methods I'm going to talk you through are easy to get your head around and will just take time to implement and practice, but you're looking at like a long-term investment that you put in 10 to 20 minutes each day on just doing scales. It will eventually accumulate over time and make you so much better than you're already playing right now. There's not many things that I would really stress heavily that are involved with grade pieces and learning classical music the conventional and classical way, but scales are one of those things that I'm so happy that I had to slog out and learn all of them because they've been a major attribute to everything I've played. So in essence, you need to know all of your scales. This video is specifically going to be going over all of the major scales from this note all the way up to this. Learn all of those major scales, and once you know all of those scales just from this note up to here, covering all this, you'll basically be set for 80% of the pieces that you're going to be ever playing in your life, I'd say. Even if you're in a minor key, you'll still be set because you know all of the major keys. It's because every minor key has a relative major key and vice versa. For example, A minor, if you come across a piece in the A minor key, you just have to count up 3 semitones to get to C major and just use the notes in the C major scale. That goes for any minor key as well. If the key is C minor, you just find out the relative major of that, which is 1, 2, 3, again, E flat major. And if you know the E flat major scale, you can apply all of those notes to the C minor key and more or less you'll be all set and good to go. There is different types of minor scales that I won't go into in this video, but effectively, if we're talking about natural minor scales, you just have to focus on the relative major. To simplify all that, we're just going to be learning each major scale. That's it. And to concentrate on the techniques of each scale, we're going to be using C major. Now, I've seen other people recommend like you should start with learning the key of like D flat or G flat or whatever, but I think no C major, there's no black notes in it. You need to get the fingering right. And once you know C major, you can then go on and learn the rest of the keys. But keep that tip in mind before we go into all of this. If you want to learn a minor key, if you're in C major and you want to know the relative minor of that, just drop 3 semitones, 1, 2, 3. That's A minor there. And then you effectively just play the scale of C major, except starting and ending on A, like that. And that's the A minor scale. And that applies to any key. So if we're in C minor, we're going to get the relative major. So it's 3 semitones up to E flat. So the scale of E flat is this. If we want to play the C minor scale, we just play those exact notes, but just starting from C and ending on C, which will be this. Now that's the natural minor scale. I'm not going to go into the different types of minors, but that's your bog standard minor scale. Harmonic minors is what I did for my grades. and it has that sound, and that's all just the seventh note you play is just raised as opposed to being flattened like it is. And it just creates more of a sound like that. Let's not get into too much of that. Straight away, we're just going to know the scale of C major. So I've broken down 3 ways to practice your scales, and each of the 3 ways are going to be using 2 octaves, right? So I think you should know your scale like this, right? It's way more effective though to practice scales with 2 octaves just because it stretches your ability, and I don't think it's much of a jump really from 1 to 2 octaves. So if I were you, I'd just go straight in and learn each key with 2 octaves. So the first way to practice each major scale is to practice the right hand separately from the left hand, right? So the first move you're going to make is practicing the scale with your right hand. And for the 2 octaves on C major, when you're going and doing your grades and learning it the classical way, they do watch and see if you start on your thumb and end on your little finger, right? So it's important if you're doing grades and stuff to get that right. In my opinion, in the real world, when you're just playing a piece and you want to play by ear, I don't really see much of a value in that, but at the same time, it's still a good challenge to do for you. For the scale of C major, since it's so simple, let's just try and start with the thumb and your little finger on the left hand, and then end with little finger on the right hand and thumb on the left hand, right? I think the scale of C major is perfect because there's no black notes involved, right? But in my opinion, it's actually harder to get the fingering right in C major because there's none of these notes helping guide you through your fingering positions. So you just have to remember, for the right hand, we're doing 2 octaves. Place your hand like this in the keys with thumb rested on C and little finger rested on G. You're going to go up as normal. 1, 2, 3. Once you get to the third, you're going to go thumb underneath to F. You're going to continue G, A, B. Once you get onto your 4th finger, you switch again on the thumb. 2, 3, and then once you get to the 3rd one, you switch again, thumb underneath, and then finish the key. So effectively what I've just done there is played 3 notes, thumb underneath, 4 notes, thumb underneath, 3 notes, thumb underneath, and then finished. Right? So it's 3, 4, 3. And then completes the key. That's how you get the fingering right from here to there. Going back down, you do the exact same, you just reverse it. So you play 5 notes consecutively, move over your 3rd here, move over to your 4th here, and then lastly, it's 3rd. So practice that over and over again until you get it smoothly. So the left hand is effectively the same. You're just starting, say here, little finger on C, thumb on G, and then consecutively play 5 notes. Cross over, put your 3rd here, cross over again, 4th here, 3rd here, and then back down. Just reverse that. So thumb underneath once you get to your 3rd note, get to the 4th finger, thumb underneath, thumb underneath once you get to the 3rd. That's it. It's good to practice 2 separately even when you're a bit comfortable playing with the 2 hands, just because it makes you really focus heavily on each hand and making sure you get them spot on and really right. I think a good trick, if you're finding the left hand trouble, I have the habit of going down too heavy like this, and it can often lead you to making mistakes easily. This goes to learning any pieces as well. What you can do is just relax your hand and play lighter. It's very simple, but for some reason it like stops you from making mistakes. That's what I found anyway. So that's step 1. You need to get comfortable with playing with your right hand separately and your left hand separately, 2 octaves on each hand. Now once you know that, the next step is to do 2 hands at the same time. So this is trickier than it looks because of the fingering. The right hand and the left hand are moving at different paces and they're swapping over at different places. So you need to get it spot on, slow it right down until you get it perfect. practice that over and over again and slow it right down to make sure, and practice 2 octaves. Once you get to the grades, they want you to play all of the scales with 2 octaves at least. And I just think it's more realistic, better finger and practice, and it just makes you more comfortable with stretching up and down the keys with both hands. So always do 2 octaves. The third and final way to practice these scales, and it's the hardest in my opinion, is contrary scales. So it's the hardest in my opinion, but it's the most rewarding once you get it right, because I like playing them. And it's harder once you get to like D major, because there's different sharps going on at different times. These really stretch your ability to play and make the right and left hand independent. Now, there was a comment actually on one of the last videos to practice playing the scales in staccato versus legato. So staccato being this, and legato is more like this. That's a great tip as well, just as a bonus tip, and also to potentially even do opposites in each hand. So like say right hand is staccato and left hand is legato, and vice versa. So do that. That will kind of train your brain to playing the 2 different hands in separate ways. And any method like that is always welcomed because it really challenges your brain. There's no easy way of learning these contrary kind of scales. You just have to sit down and slowly practice them yourself. The fingering is exactly the same as the way we learned it. C major is a particularly easy one to learn that method first. So as I said, yeah, it will get more difficult the more you go up the keys. But really, that's it. It will excel your playing once you know all of those major keys. And if there's demand for it, I will make maybe a separate video on learning all of the major keys and what they are and the best ways to practice them. But in all honesty, I need more practice on like my exact fingering for each key. I know, for example, for the flats, you start off with your 3rd finger on the left hand, and with the right hand either the 2nd or 3rd, and go up like that. But yeah, I can do another video on that before, but I really wanted this one to be all about you nailing the C major scale and then applying that to all other scales. So what you can do is you can download the free cheat sheet I made. It has all scales on it for you. So print that out, have it on hand, and you can go through that while you're practicing it. But for now, before you do that even, I'll tell you the order which I think you should learn each scale in. Now, people have different opinions on this, but this is how I did it when I was doing my grade pieces. And as you know, on this channel, this isn't a big channel for promoting the classical method of learning with grades and all that stuff. But that is one thing that I'd fully back regarding learning piano through grades in the conventional way. So the order I would learn all of these in is C major first, then G major, because that's 1 sharp, which is F sharp. Then D major, because that's moving on to 2 sharps, F and C. The next one I do is A major, because that's 3 sharps. E major is next, 4 sharps. B major, which is 5. And that is different because with the left hand, you're switching over and your 4th there rather than your 3rd. The next one I go to is F major, because it has no sharps, it just flattens the B in it. And then we'll move on to flats. And I don't have any major opinions on what flats you should learn first, but B flat is a good one because it only has 1 flat, like 1 extra flat in it, which is E. And again, with these flat scales, you need to start off with the ring in the left hand and the right hand, either the index or the third. Moving on from there, I'm going to go with E flat next, A flat next, and do all these with 2 octaves. I'm just doing 1 for speed. I go with D flat next then, and then G flat is the last one. Obviously, I said flats for all of those there, but you can use sharps either for that. So starting with A sharp, D sharp versus E flat, and so on. And that's it. So in essence, learn all of your major keys and start with C major and do those 3 different methods. And regardless, it can be daunting setting out to learn all of those major scales and 2 octaves of each. What I'd focus on doing is setting a goal for yourself that you can definitely control. So I found it really helpful to just say, I'm going to do 10 or 20 minutes a day on my scales. And at least you can tick that off. If you just sat and concentrate on scales for 10 minutes a day, you'd be surprised at how much progress you make. Just 10 minutes, 20 on the positive end of things. But I know time is limited and all that stuff, but you'd be able to really see it in the future pieces you learn if you just set aside and invested that amount of time every single day for scales. And yeah, so don't focus too much on perfecting them right away. Focus on just getting familiar with them, slowly making your way through them and slowly perfecting them, because once you know all of these notes in each key, it will skyrocket your playing. Another tip I'd say, if there's a piece you're currently learning, find out what key that piece is in and maybe start learning that key as well. But there's no right or wrong way of doing this. There's no right or wrong order of where to go. I just think you need to get stuck in and learn them. And there's no real easy way of learning scales as well. It just requires hard work and sitting down and putting in the hours, really. So best luck with that. And maybe if there's demand for it, I can make a new video more about minor scales or about the different types of major scales and how to learn them best and all that kind of stuff. In the meantime, download that free document that I made for free in the description. And also I'm offering one-on-one tuition. So if you want to book in with me, you can have access to my calendar down there below and just book in a slot there to do some like online classes. All right, best of luck and let me know what you want to see next.